Hello, I'm back. And this is a new video. The title of this video is Get Out, or Third Parties Are Irrelevant. Stay tuned while I expand upon why I feel this way and provide proof that people who say they only buy a system for third-party games aren't really gamers at all. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm back, and it's time to get down to it. You have to realize three very important things, okay? Third party games, i.e. multi-plat games, are not the savior of the system, okay? Now, Sony and Microsoft have been basically licking the rear ends of third-party companies like EA, Activision, THQ when they were around, Rock 2K, but these third-party games are not, multiplats are not the most important part of a console's life. Okay, now if you're a PC gamer, this does not apply because basically most of the games that come to PC are multiplats nowadays. I mean, aside from MMOs and certain types of FPSs, most of them are multiplats that were ported over from the console. I mean, this isn't a pejorative or an aspersion, it's just a fact. But looking at it, let's take a closer look, okay? Now, let's say you were to really think of it in terms of like this, okay? Basically, multiplats are side dishes, okay? They should not be the thing that really determines whether or not you're going to like a game or buy a system or like a system, okay? It's the equivalent of saying, well, I really want to eat at this restaurant that has an excellent, that serves an excellent, that has an excellent main course, but you know, their mashed potatoes are terrible, or I'll only eat at this restaurant because they have the fries that I like. That's a very, I mean, it's your prerogative as a consumer, but that's a very shallow reason to want to go to a certain place over another. The thing that should really dictate as to whether or not you're going to buy a console are the exclusives, okay? Simple as that. Because, you know, much like any business, okay, your exclusives, what is your sole strength, what brings people to your place is what is going to determine, you know, why people buy certain systems, okay? The strength of your exclusives are what's going to bring you to the party, okay? It's what's going to bring customers to you, okay? So, you know, people go to a dynamite Mexican restaurant because their Mexican food is really authentic, or their fish taco is just mind-blowing. They aren't going there because they can eat the same shit that they eat at other places at this place right here. That makes no sense. So that leads me to my first point. Multiplats are a waste of time. I mean, I don't mean they aren't fun to play or, you know, they aren't nice. I mean, I own a PS3. A lot of the games I got were also found on the 360. But what you could find solely on the PS3 were also very important, okay? Simple as that. Now, let's get down to it. As I said earlier, exclusives are the most important thing. Sony has exclusives. Microsoft has exclusives. Nintendo has exclusives. But let's look at the strength of each company's exclusives. We'll start from weakest to best. Microsoft has the weakest exclusives, okay? They have Halo, their shitty Kinect games, and Forza. and a handful of indie games that they basically hold exclusive rights to, like not Explosion Man. Yeah, Explosion Man, not Explosion Man. The game with the character. Yeah, Explosion Man. Explosion Man. You know, not really, you know, their exclusivity deals are very draconian. That's their thing. That's Microsoft pays for a lot of third-party timed exclusives and DLC exclusives, and that's what they're known for. But like on the strength of their sole exclusives, Microsoft is like a restaurant that only makes 3 dishes that really define them, and the 3 dishes aren't very good. Okay, Halo hasn't been good since 2, really. Forza, they microtransaction the shit out of that, and you know, I mean, none of their games on the Xbox One look pretty, but they really aren't very good. It's like someone saying, "Look at the garnish on this dish," and then you take a bite and it's like, it tastes like shit, but it looks pretty. Sony is the next culprit. Sony has a pretty good set of exclusives compared to Microsoft, until you realize that Sony's exclusives don't really sell. I mean, with Microsoft, at least their exclusives get people in the door. Like, people will buy Xbox One for Halo or Forza. Like, they'll buy a system for those types of exclusives. No one really buys a Sony, bought a PS3 for Last of Us, or Uncharted, or Resistance. I mean, I got Infamous for free. I bought a bundle. It came with Infamous, Darksiders, Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time, and a free download for Little Big Planet. I mean, and trust me, if I wouldn't have gotten those games if they didn't come bundled. Okay, I was not specifically, oh, let me just, I really want a game with the electric shooting guy, or, you know, Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time. You know, Sony's exclusives they haven't sold that well since the PS1 and early PS2 days. You know, you'll hear a lot of Sony fans, oh, the Sony's exclusives. Sony's exclusives, the reason Sony has so many exclusives is because they're trying to find a Mario, a Zelda, a Metroid, but they don't have the creativity for it. You know, so Sony isn't willing to put in the quality time in order to build a proper franchise. So instead, they're constantly changing things up, trying to find something. You know, now, because we can look at Sega and Nintendo, 2 of the oldest IPs, like successful IPs, because you look at Pac-Man, like, he hasn't really been in a lot, but you look at the 2 companies that have successful or semi-successful IPs, and you see that, you know, they had their growing pains. I mean, Nintendo, not every Mario game was as big a hit as the first one. Not every Zelda game was as big a hit as the first ones. There were ups and downs, high and lows, but they built their franchises from the ground up. Every game was kind of trying to push the envelope forward, and they just stuck with it. Okay, that's the key point. They stuck with it. Sony is constantly changing things up, and they don't stick with anything. Okay, in the PS1, we got Pa-Rappa the Rapper, and the weird cat mascot in Japan, and Ape Escape, and Tomba, and I mean, all of these really good, you know, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. They sold off Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot to Activision, which is why we have Skylanders. I mean, basically we've seen, you know, the fall of, you know, the thing that really pushed Sony were the multiplats, or I should say the third-party exclusives that were on the console for the PS1 and the PS2. You know, third parties. Those pushed that console. But third parties are falling. But that'll be in the last part of this video. And that brings us to Nintendo. Nintendo has some of the best exclusives in the business. I mean, they have exclusives that other companies would kill to... They would sacrifice their children to a demon god in order to have those exclusives. And if you don't believe me, look at Sony's blatant attempts to steal, to create Nintendo-like IPs. They're making a Vita Pets 2. Now, the first one sold like shit. So, like, no one, I mean, I don't think anyone bought this game. But Sony is desperately trying to create that Vita Pets that Vita Pets experience. Iced coffee, delicious. So basically, this leads me to, you know, why are exclusives so important? Exclusives are important because they basically tell you that, you know, multiplats are fine and dandy, but really, in the grand scheme of things, they're multiplats. I mean, the same games that I can get on a PS3 or an Xbox 360 or a PS4 or Xbox One, I can get on a high-end PC using Steam. I mean, except for the exclusives, there's really nothing that. And if you don't like the exclusives coming to those platforms, like, nothing I've seen from Sony really says, oh, I have to have this. Nothing that I've seen from Xbox One makes me say, oh, I have to have this. Put it down to me being an old school gamer. You could put it down to me, you know, always having a Nintendo console in my house. But I'm sorry, I just don't care. Now, you know, if they come out with a $500 Steam box, I'll get that, and to hell that and my Wii U, and to hell with Sony and Microsoft, because I am tired of those people. I'm tired of them. I am so tired of Sony and Microsoft and their shitty exclusives that I really could care less about. I'm sorry. Don't get me started. So that leads me to my final point: the fall of third parties. We've now, you know, some people will say that third parties, the fall started with THQ. No. This fall has been a long and slow but steady decline in third parties, okay? The mid-level third parties that used to basically put out mid-level games, or, you know, the inventive hits where they took a chance, are gone. Midway, Acclaim, Hudson Soft, you know, Namco got eaten by Bandai, so now it's Namco Bandai. Sega got eaten by Sammy, which are the pachinko people in Japan. I mean, the mid-level people that just used to put out inventive, risky games are gone. And now it's just these huge companies. And, you know, you have EA and Activision and, you know, Microsoft and Sony buying up smaller studios to kind of augment themselves. And it's frightening. You know, as a gamer, it's frightening because it doesn't really lend itself to what's the word I'm looking for? Creativity or inventiveness or something new and interesting. It's frightening from a business standpoint because you need all the levels of, you know, stuff, okay? Like think of it, it's kind of like a restaurant. You can't have all high-end restaurants. You need mid-level and low-level and like drive-in. You need all levels. in order for a healthy market to exist. Okay, you can't have all luxury cars. You need mid-level, low-level. You know, that student car that you get for your kid when they're going to college. You know, that car that you get when you don't really want to buy a Mustang. You know, you want a dependable vehicle that's gonna have good miles per the gallon, get you where you're going, come back, and as long as you get it serviced and take care of it, it's gonna do what you need done. I mean, you know, you need those different levels. You need that, you know, the tiers for different people. And same thing with the video game industry. Yes, you need an Activision, you need an EA, but you also need, you know, we're sorely missing the THQs, the Midways, the Acclaims, you know, the Segas, the Hudson Sauce. We need those smaller companies that put out quality games that are niche. We need those, okay? Atlas was bought by Sega. Now, I'm glad Atlas managed to get bought, well, not Sega, Sammy, bought by Sammy. I'm glad that Atlas is still in the running, still making games, but this is also a bad thing because, you know, that small audience that made niche games for people might go away. And I understand some people might say, well, indie games are the new third party. Not really. And I'll make another video to explain why later today. But generally speaking, third parties, I mean, they've done more harm to the industry than they've helped. You know, I mean, basically, third parties, by dint of their very existence, by dint of the bigger third-party companies squeezing out the little guys or buying them up and forcing them to make shitty games and games on a deadline. The thing is, it's like, in order to make you can't rush a masterpiece, okay? You can't rush someone doing something well, okay? I mean, why do people think BioWare put out Dragon Age 2 and Mass Effect 3? Both of these games felt rushed and ill-made because EA wanted them to. Why did people think Battlefield 4 was such a buggy mess? Because it was rushed. It was rushed to meet a deadline. Why do people think Skyrim and Oblivion and Fallout 3 are such buggy games? Because they are rushed to meet a deadline. This is a legacy of third-party companies pushing for deadlines. You cannot rush a good game, okay? You know, Shigeru Miyamoto said it best. Look, a bad game, if you delay it, can be made into a good game. But once you release a bad game, it's bad forever, okay? Forever. I mean, companies, you know, websites like IGN and GameSpot are damage controlling GTA 5's shitty online. That's not going to change the fact that people will remember that the online was shitty, or that Battlefield 4 had buggy multiplayer. That's not going to change the fact that people remember that it was shitty. So, you know, make of it what you will. These are just my 2 cents. I'll have another video coming out about why indies are not the savior of the industry later on today. I also will leave a link to, well, actually I don't need a link. I didn't cite any sources for this. You guys have a good day. Stay tuned for more.